Rapid value execution, obtaining value for the business out of IT, is the key holy grail. Various methods or methodologies have been developed because mixing the issue of agile or rapid development while maintaining control and avoiding the disasters that are always lurking is this complex balancing act. Now, there's a perception that some of the standards-based methodologies, like Prince2, are too cumbersome to be effective. That's not necessarily true, and I want to explore quickly how we can apply some of the agile principles and the Web 2 incremental principles in Prince2 and ITIL compliant, standards compliant approaches so that we are efficient and yet we maintain control. We're not running out of control. Now, one of the big issues, of course, is this incremental development approach where we go from business requirements to detailed requirements to develop to test. And testing last is really one of the big problems. As we hand over from one phase to the next, and I call it tossing it over the wall, because it goes from the business analysts to IT analysts to the developers. Each represents an increment in cost of repair. So if there's a faulty business requirement or a missing business requirement, discovering it at the test point is really, really expensive. That is not the place to find problems. Same with detailed requirements, but as we go further on, if we can bring the testing forward, there are big advantages. There's one other cost aspect that I really want to emphasize in passing, which is the importance of continuity from the consultants and the business analysts who identify the first business requirements. There needs to be continuity, not just of the testing, but also of some of the corporate knowledge, if you will, the corporate memory related to this project. Why is it being done? What are the objectives? Does this look like it's going to meet them? So let's look, however, at the testing aspect. Now, we all know that delays mean cost, and a more agile approach means if we can bring testing forward, we're going to reduce the time to deploy. Of course, it's going to improve the quality, and of course, we're going to be more responsive. Also, this Web 2.0 characteristic of incremental releases is also an important aspect of responsiveness. This, of course, is just the old prototyping methodology updated. And reducing waste and cost, if we correct errors early in the phase, or missing requirements early in the phase, or failed tests early in the phase, it's going to cost so much less to repair. So business requirements, if we use the agile principle that development is driven by failed tests, then the business requirements should define just-in-time test cases out of the use cases. So first of all, we've brought some of that testing forward. Will it actually meet the business requirements? What is the current system or the current situation failing to deliver? Why do we have to do the project? What are the failures that we need to repair? As we drill down through the detailed requirements, again, another set of just-in-time test cases are produced and to get out of the development phase, so that as we test each phase, and the whole specification process and definition process is actually designed around ensuring that accurate testing is the outcome. Now, on the surface it looks as if that isn't, or a number of people suggest that that's not compatible with Prince, which I find very difficult to understand. When we implement Prince, and we have deployed this methodology in a couple of Commonwealth of Australia organisations, essentially Prince is really just establishing some key control points. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, particularly if you use a short form process like this. So again, you've got checklists for starting the project, initiating it, and then managing the stages, which can be very equivalent to the incremental releases. And then, if it's not an ongoing project, if it's a specific project, we have to close it and hand it over. Now, none of this is necessarily rocket science. This is all just common sense. And when you look at the checklists, if this is the overall control for the whole of a project from inception to closure, it's really, in terms of the things that you really need to focus on, this is not overwhelming. There are a number of things there, but none of it is overwhelming, and each of it can be phased. So one of the key takeaway messages from this is managing a project doesn't have to kill it, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, but also you do not have to let projects run wild. Control does not have to be heavy and overbearing, but control is required to ensure successful outcomes. Now let's start to align this within the organization, within the ITIL principles. So the business drives the requirements. While that is true, we also must recognize that IT has a lot to contribute with through new technologies and new ways of doing things in ensuring that we understand new capabilities for business process reengineering, for changing the way we do business, for lowering the cost of the way we do business. And this applies whether it's a government organization or a private enterprise or a not-for-profit. The outreach capabilities that can be demonstrated through intelligent, business-focused use of a technology really can change the way we do our business. And that must be incorporated, but aligned with the business requirements right at the start. Therefore, there is a role still for a program office for control and management and deciding whether to start a project or not. This is a really critical decision. Once we're in the project, the incremental approach then can really be applied. And I'd like to drill down now here to have a look at, as you can see, each stage, and a stage can be an incremental release, or it can be a specific stage as we've defined them, phases within the traditional sort of project management approach, but each of these is cyclical. Now, before you enter the stage, there has to be a new stage plan. What we're advocating is if you have test requirements as part of that stage plan, using the Agile principle that all development is driven from failed tests, then if you don't have tests that have failed, why are you doing the development? If there are new requirements that haven't been met, why are you doing the development? So they have to be defined right up front at that stage plan. As you drill down through the stage plan, we get down in the bottom right hand corner, we have the work packages. Now these are your incremental releases, a work package. Each of these needs a test plan. Each of these need test cases. Again, we're still meeting that incremental test approach that is part of Agile and part of Web 2.0 concepts, and maintaining control, because we are not developing work packages unless we know why and what the outcomes will be. As we escalate up through the project issues, going counterclockwise through this diagram, we get to the exception reports. Project issues, of course, are going to be all sorts of things. They're going to be people issues, management issues, timing issues, resource and cost issues. They will also be functionality issues that come out through the exception report. And if there are no test plans, how do you know that you're failing, that you have functionality issues? And we're saying that if you revert back to some of the Agile principles and apply them through Prince, you get a much better outcome, both in terms of managing it, because you're using a Prince standard methodology, you're getting alignment through ITIL, but you're also getting the benefits of the incremental and Agile type approaches in terms of managing your projects. As we drill back up, we are managing our incremental releases within a larger ITIL compliant framework, within a larger Prince compliant framework. We're meeting the standards, and particularly for government organisations that need to demonstrate that they are developing things effectively and efficiently. Developing things effectively and efficiently does not mean abandoning all control, and it's not allowed within a government environment or where the auditors are going to come and visit. But that doesn't also not mean, but these things are still compatible. You can still have efficient and effective releases within a managed environment. They are not incompatible, they are compatible. You can even develop extreme programming capabilities and competencies within a managed, controlled environment. I remember one of the founders of extreme programming said, extreme programming does not mean stupid programming. And it's true, having management oversight, having control points is still a valid principle. Now, I wanted to come back to this higher level because every project, even incremental long-term beta type Web 2.0 projects, need to be reviewed because sometimes they need to be put down. In every organization and every project that we've seen, I mean, I started working on web projects in the early mid-90s. Now, so I've seen iteration after iteration. I've seen many ways in which some of the early functionality that we thought was just super duper has been superseded completely. Those projects have been put down or incorporated into new projects. You must have a project review process at the end of each cycle and at the end of each stage, because projects cannot go on for 20 years or 30 years without review. So this higher level control is still required. Technology changes, technology moves on, and sometimes technology overwhelms that which was there before. A review process, an ITIL compliant or Prince compliant overall management of all of your IT expenditure and projects is still required for proper governance. Just because it's a Web 2.0 project or Agile, it doesn't mean that management has to say, abandon all hope, ye who enter here, because control, management, and efficiency are actually partners if handled correctly. I'd like to drill down into this further in more videos because we think that this is a critical issue. How do you develop efficiently in a managed way and in a standards compliant way? Because you can do it.